Hello and welcome to Retech, and today we're going to cover the Commodore Plus 4. And the Commodore Plus 4 was a much maligned machine when it was current, but it doesn't get anywhere near the kind of recognition or the airtime, so to speak, as a lot of other computers in the Commodore range. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that it was kind of seen as too expensive, was competing against its own sibling, the Commodore 64, and a lot of people thought that it wasn't a very good machine, but in fact it was. It was also seen as not a very reliable machine, and yet it is. These are my 4 units. So they haven't been retro-brighted, they haven't been overly restored, they're just the way they are. You can tell by this one's got a slightly yellow keyboard, well, very yellow keyboard. This one's slightly patchy. This one's just about perfect. It hasn't been touched though. And this one is alright. It's, it's passable. It's not a bad one. But they haven't been restored. They haven't been retro-brighted. They've been repaired. Now, each and every one of these have had some kind of repair done to them. Now, this one was my first Plus 4. And basically it wouldn't power on. It had a few other issues, and I decided that the power supply that comes with the Plus 4, when I checked it out, found out it wasn't very good. So I kind of ditched the Plus 4 power supply. It's kind of the source of all evils on these machines. It's the one thing that really does kill these very, very quickly. So I converted this to run off of a Commodore 64 power supply. It was quite an easy conversion. This one here, again, it's kind of had the power supply ditched, the standard Plus 4 one, and it's running off an adapter onto a Commodore 64 power supply, which I found this a lot later than this when I did this one, and if I actually think about it, and I could get hold of these adapters at the time I did this years ago, I would have maybe went down that route. But these get lost, these adapters, and they get misplaced, and then you try and end up plugging in a Plus 4 power supply, and the machine doesn't live very long after that. So yeah, these adapters are great, but try and keep them always plugged into your machine so that you know where they are. But also it's had a few other modifications as this, apart from a joystick adapter, because the Commodore Plus 4 ones are fairly hard to get hold of, really, the joysticks now, and a standard Atari style D-type joystick is the easiest one to get hold of for these vintage machines, or any vintage machine really. So that's those are 2 simple mods, but it's also had a bit of reconstruction inside of this one. It's had a brand new chipset. It's not the original Plus 4 chipset that's running in this, which we'll cover throughout this video as well. So this video is basically aiming at keeping these machines alive. It's aiming at upgrading these machines where possible, or repairing them. Okay, this one here has had a CPU upgrade, but it's also had a joystick port upgrade as well. It's running 9-pin joystick ports on the back of this machine instead of the standard Commodore one, and it's not an adapter, it's actually physical 9-pin joystick ports. And then we have this machine here, which again is a complete rework inside. It's had a PLA change, it's had a CPU change, it's had all the ROM sets changed, it's had the kernel changed, and yet it still survives. All of these machines work and work almost perfectly. And almost is because whenever you do a few upgrades or use a few modern parts or replicant parts which have been produced on modern dies and modern hardware, there's going to be some issues which we cover as well. But the issues aside, which have all been kind of taken away from these machines now, these machines do not have any issues whatsoever because of the work that's been done, which you'll see throughout this video. Now, the Plus 4 is a great little machine. It does a lot more than most people realize, and especially if you run a program or a game called Pets Rescue, you can see how good these machines really are. Now within this video we're going to use some of the previous videos that I've done, or clips out of the previous videos, because if you want to go back and see the long form version with more detailed explanations, then you can go back to my older videos which cover this in more detail. But these machines deserve a video on their own about the upgrades to get them working, and most of the upgrades to get them working is what most of the people who own these are eventually going to have to do, or will probably need to be done now. So the first video is the upgrade on the power port. You have to forgive the slightly shaky camera work because it was one of my early ones, but it's just a chunk out of one of my early videos to show you really how that can be done. It's fairly straightforward. Then we cover the first of the upgrades for the processor, or the first recreated processor for these Commodore Plus 4s. Then it follows by a better recreated processor that was brought out a little later, and it didn't rely on converting a hard to get hold of replacement CPU anyway for one of these machines, and it's a much better system. There's a much more modern platform. The replacement CPU on the second version of these CPUs, and it's also a much more reliable version, and it's very neat. It's very well done. But then we cover the replacement of the PLAs and also the ROM sets that are inside at least two of these machines, and that covers the components that are most faulty in these machines. So this is why I put this video together. So let's take a look at this video. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need any more detailed information on each one, just go back and run the full video of each upgrade or each repair concern. So let's take a look at how each of these machines were upgraded and brought back to life. So let's have a look. Okay, so here's the system board as you may have seen it before in a previous video, and it's fairly straightforward to take out. All you need to do is just to remove a handful of screws just outlined here, and it's not that involved in taking the screws out. Once it's out, you lift it from the left hand side and then just ease the board out, otherwise you could end up breaking the power switch if you just yank it straight up. Okay, once you've done that, that's all there is to it. Okay, so the board can be laid where you need it to be worked on. As you can see, it's the offending article is on the left, and coming up now is the replacement socket. Okay, so it's not dissimilar, it's the same shape, same form factor. And on the underside of the board you can see these are the pins you have to desolder, just being outlined here, and including the two solder pads at the top, which can be quite difficult to remove. Once you've got the socket desoldered, you can just lift it out without dropping it, and then all you need to do then is try and test fit your new one into the same place. As you can see, the pins are identical. So once you test fit it into the motherboard, you can see here it fits perfectly. There's nothing to do on it, and then all you need to do once you're happy with it is start to resolder the new socket onto the board itself. Then the next step from the underside is to solder the 7 solder joints that make up the hard connection for the new socket. And all that's left to do is to put the new repaired board into your existing case. Make sure the switch is to the off position so it doesn't catch, and then just slide the board in once you're happy with the positioning of the switch so it doesn't catch on the plastics. and we just slide it in as so, and then gently lower the left hand corner into its case. And that's all there is to it. And now your board's back in the machine. All that remains is a test of the system now. Power cables, RF cable in, and then you turn it on, and hopefully this is what you see, a nicely repaired Commodore Plus 4. Okay, so this is your Plus 4 again, opened up. As you can see, the keyboard's in place, the cheap and cheerful ribbon connectors in place. It's not very nice, but it does work. It's better than the one used in the Sinclair machines, because at least they've reinforced it to stop it from cracking as much or breaking. And there's the new kernel. Okay, and as I said, the machine works without the kernel, but you've got a few things that actually don't work as well as they should be. More complex routines seem to kind of phase it. And then there's the little daughter board. And really, it was something that I was going to do anyway, but it's already been done, so why repeat what's been done? And this one works really well. You got your processor and you got your daughter board, which is, it plugs directly into the socket, so there's no real soldering needed to do. Oh, you could remove the processor, and you could remove the socket on the board and put it lower down if you needed to, but I don't think that would really be any advantage on this, because it's got a nice gap on the board between the processor and the actual socket where you plug it into, which means that it doesn't foul the keyboard, which is a nice idea. But also, it's, you know, as I say, it's Hack Junk who, you know, produces these, and having looked at it, it does the swapping of the pins, which is nice, which is something I was looking at doing, and it was something I actually initially sketched up, but I'm quite glad in a way that it's already been done and it's already been tested. It just saves a lot of hassle. So if you have one of these, pop over to Hack Junk and see if they can get you one. Okay, they're nice job, really nice job. I can't, you know, say enough about them. And so it's all in there, it's all ready to go. Okay, so as you can tell, it does work, and let's have a quick look. So as you can see, this is the Plus 4, and it's powered on, and the little normal repeating script on basic, and if I press run, it works a treat. Okay, so the machine is working. Press F1, press return, and you're back into the productivity packages, as they called it. So, you know, it's all nicely working, which is brilliant, because that's the way it should be, and even the reset key works, and it's quite quick. So don't have any problems with the machine now. So hopefully all I'm going to do now is just change a few keycaps over, because as you can see, it's yellow stripe on those, slightly yellow on the bar, and slightly yellow down the sides, but you know, that's not going to cause me a problem. I just want to try a different repair on this machine. This machine's working well, it does everything you need to do, but fast loaders are a problem, or fast tape loaders, because the workaround doesn't work with fast loaders, so it kind of restricts you a little bit to some of the software. Now I'm going to try this little piece of equipment, which is the 85M CO1, and basically it's another fix for the Commodore Plus 4's processor, which is meant to work with fast loaders and basically not have any issues with software that the other fix or the other workaround does. Now, it's a lot more complicated piece of kit, and it shows in the design, It's not just simply a patch for the original processor to run basically a version of the 6510, and it came all the way from Italy by a company or a group called MCES, and this is their latest version, which we're going to try. There we have the original repair, which is a 6510. So what we're going to do is take this one out, but we also have to replace the kernel and put the original in, because this one is a fix for the serial port. But we're going to take this out and we're going to have a try of the new system. Okay, so we have the original kernel in, and we have the new updated processor in. And it's quite a neat package. It fits really well. It only just fits up against this capacitor here, but other than that, it's quite tidy. It looks kind of as if it should have been in the machine from the start. Okay, so the moment of truth, I'm just going to switch the machine on, and there we go. It works. So we're going to try out the machine now. Okay, so everything seems to work as normal. So we're going to try the machine out with some fast loading software and see what happens. Okay, so we're going to attach the Commodore cassette deck, and the immediate thing you notice is it's not running the tape deck full time. What the original fix I had in this was it ran the tape deck, it ran the motor all the time. This one doesn't. So this one works the way it should work. So we're going to try some cassette software out and see what happens. Okay, so the usual load, and then we're going to start off. There we go, and the screen goes the right colour, and it goes blank straight away looking for the cassette. So we're not going to subject you to the cassette spinning for the next 15 minutes, so we're just going to do a little bit of video editing, and we're just going to show you when it's installed and running. And the good thing is it stopped and started the cassette deck straight away as soon as it found it. So that's another plus point over the hack junk version, which was good anyway, and it basically makes sure that everything runs. And here we are. And it's, as you can tell, it's a fast loader, so we'll see how it goes. You forget how slow these cassette decks are, but they do work every time. And that's it, it's done. We're going to try another one just to make sure, but this fix seems to be 100% compatible. Okay, we're going to try this one now for the Commodore Plus 4. Again, it's in the tape deck ready to go, and we're just going to load it on the screen. Press play on tape, and then off it goes. So we'll wait until this one installs. Okay, it's found it, and it's stopped the tape and started the tape. Spot on. No timing fixes, no fixes for pauses, and again it seems to work every time. Okay, so it's loading in as normal, and so this is not a fast load, it's a Nova load, so we'll see how it copes with this one. And there we have it, Mr. Puniverse running from a Nova load cassette tape, which is something the other one never did. So the original fix had problems with these loads, but this seems to work fine. So back to the main screen, and we're going to see how it works with the serial port, because again the original fix had to have a patch on the kernel to work with the serial port. So this time we're going to give this another try. We're going to try this version out, this new fix, with a serial port device. First with a SD device, and it is connected via an adapter because the Plus 4 uses a different cassette interface, so we need the power via this cassette adapter to make this work. And we're just going to see if the actual machine sees the device. Yep, and it sees the device. Should come back with an yep, that's it. So this machine actually sees the serial port properly. So again, that's another plus point, literally, over the other device. So we're going to give it another test, this time with an original disk drive connected through the serial port. And we're going to try it from the Plus 4 to see if this fix actually works with the serial port with any other enhancements. So we'll do a quick search on the drive and see what happens. And there we go. So if we list it, we have the program listed in here now. So it works. So we're going to get it, let it finish its listing, and we'll run just to make sure that it actually has seen everything on the drive. And yes, it's the introduction to the disk drive. So if we skip along to the end of this line and try part 2. And again, this works fine. Let's list the program, written in BASIC, and everything works the way it should do. So, seems to be, so far, a really good fix for a Commodore Plus 4 or Commodore 16. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a very, very yellowed and very sorry looking Commodore Plus 4. And the reason you might be asking is, well, it's just another Plus 4, but parts are getting harder to come by for these machines, and also working processors and working PLAs are getting very, very difficult to come by as well. And they fail all of the time. So I'm going to use another Plus 4. I think this is the 4th one I've got, or the 4th one I own. But it doesn't work. And what I'm going to try and do is rebuild the machine out of new components, or as many new components as possible, so we can find out if we can really put together a machine that's working out of either recreated parts or any parts we can get hold of to make the machine work. So what we're going to do is going to take it apart, and we're going to look at what we've put in the machine up to this point. So the first thing we're going to do, take the old screwdriver, and we're going to take the machine apart. So we're just going to remove the normal screws and see what we're left with. Right, so we have a Plus 4, or what really is left of a Plus 4, because the first thing you'll notice is there are empty ROM sockets, and these are the original ROMs that were in the machine. Now the reason why I'm taking these out is because A, the Plus 4 ROM doesn't actually do anything anymore, it's given up the ghost. So that leaves the kernel as the main other ROM, and just need to find a way of getting a Plus 4 ROM to work. And one of the best ways of doing it is if you have one of these. And this one's a C16 plus 4 ROM set, and what it does, it actually replaces 3 of the ROMs. Well, it actually replaces 4 of the ROMs, and the only thing it doesn't have is the PLA, and you can see there's a blank socket here. Now the PLA on this one is completely dead, it just shows a black screen. 2 of the original ROMs here work fine, it's just the plus 4 ROM set that doesn't work at all. But need to kind of modernize the machine just to see if modern components can make it work. And you can also see we have a Commodore 16/+4 CPU substitute, and it's the 85MC01, and as I said before, it's one of the nicer ones. There is an alternative, as we have spoke about, which is the 8501 to a 6510, and it comes with a modified kernel, and it's a very good ROM set. It works very well, but just for the sake of continuity, these 2 components are supplied and manufactured by the same small company in Italy, and the PLA itself is again supplied by the same company. And I found that the CPU is very good. It does have a few shortcomings, and the shortcoming being that it's got slight timing issues through the serial port with a disk drive, but you can get around it, and for most of the time it works fine, and it seems to work with nearly all of the cassette software I've tried, so it's quite a good alternative. And the plus 4 ROM set here, I've played around with it and I can't see any real difference between that and the original, and it works really well, including the plus 4 software that's on board. So the advantage of this is it actually gets rid of a lot of heat out of the machine, which is a good thing because they do run hot and they do cause problems. Now the PLA, which is this socket here, the original PLA I actually got was this one. And it is a PLA 251641-02, and it works really well, but unfortunately once it's in the socket here it stands way too proud, and you cannot get the case back down on the keyboard, so it's too high, it's too big. It works fine in the Commodore 16 but not in the plus 4, so I now have a different version and it's very much slimmer and smaller. And if we compare them, you can see the difference in height, width, and it actually fits within this case, so you can shut the keyboard up and you can then use it as a Commodore Plus 4, and it basically sits in this package just here. Okay, and you can see it sits fairly level. It's not a lot higher than the original chipsets or even the recreated Plus 4 chipset, so it clears the keyboard quite well. And you can actually shut the keyboard up, which you couldn't do before with the other version. So what else? Well, first of all, apart from the colour of the case, we need a heat sink for the TED chip. You can see there's a metal shield missing on the lid here, which I'm going to sort out in a little while. But what I'll do is I'll put a heat sink on here for now once I've tested it and make sure everything's fine. And really the innards of the machine is all fine. Everything else on this board tested out. There was no real massive problems with it, and it really just needs to be sorted out. Now the other major thing is this fuse here. It's been wire wrapped at some point, so that's going to come out before I even turn this board on. And also there's a converter cable at the back to run a standard Commodore 64 power supply, which actually saves me from changing this power port there for a standard Commodore one, because just like every other Plus 4 I've purchased, had a look at, repaired and so on, the power supplies are faulty, nearly every single one of them. And the other thing I did to this machine was sort the keyboard out. This was the original keyboard that came with the machine. Most of it didn't work, and it wasn't making good contact with the bottom, even though most of the contacts in the keys seemed to be fine, and it needed the actual keyboard plate replacing, and also quite a few of the keys. So after that was completed, we have a working keyboard which is in here. So basically the original back plate with a new keyboard, which was from another broken machine, and then basically put together in a kind of Heath Robinson kind of Frankenstein way, but it works, and it works fine. All it needs really is cleaning up and de-yellowing. So the first thing I'm going to do now is just replace the fuse and then power the machine on. Okay, so we're just going to we've popped the lid on, and obviously replace the fuse inside and put a little heatsink across the head just to be on the safe side. And you know, you never know with these machines that you find on eBay or Gumtree or wherever you look for them, you know, what state they're going to be in, what somebody's done to them before, what kind of condition it's going to be in, what kind of iffy or slightly off-kilter repairs are going to have done to them in the past. And as I say, I think the person who had this before thought that it was a fuse, and for whatever reason wire wrapped the fuse, which is never a good thing. And obviously when they got the same result, such as a black screen, etc., that was it. They put it up for sale because obviously, you know, they had a few faults with the keyboard, etc., and it was probably a little bit too much for them to go into repairing it. But especially as probably at the time they sold this, the Plus 4 was kind of worthless, really. Now it's gaining in value, and they are getting harder and harder to find. So the biggest reason for this is to find out whether or not you can repair it, and is it going to be reliable enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the machine on, and then you should see a familiar Commodore screen, and this one has 3+1 on key F1, which is brilliant because this machine never worked. It never had that option. Even when I swapped the chips out of this machine into a known working machine, we never had that option. So if I press F1, familiar package to people who know these machines. And you know, so far everything that should work does work, and that's the same for everything else on this machine. Everything seems to work fine. I mean, all of the shortcut keys work, all the directory keys work, all of the function keys work, and it works the way an original Plus 4 ROM set should work. You've got the obviously screen, so your PLA is working. You have a display and graphics on the screen, so your TED is working, and obviously the kernel is working because you're getting this, and you're also getting errors as well. So if I reset this, so obviously the TED's working as well as the basic interpreter. So all of the chips on board are actually working the way they should, and for all outward appearance this machine is functioning the way it should be functioning. So that's a good thing. And for the sake of about £40, £35 or thereabouts, you've got a brand new ROM set in here, which is almost compatible. The processor's the bit that is always going to be a stumbling block, but the machine functions, and it functions well. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this very brief compilation of repairing the Commodore Plus 4. As I said, it needs a bit more love and attention really throughout the retro community, and it's a much better machine than most people remember it to be. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you'll go back and look at the long form videos, and to get a little bit more information, or just to see how different my video skills have kind of developed in the last few years. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks again. See you.
Thank you.